Hello, my name is Malik Abastab. Welcome to Upfront. On Upfront, we ask all the relevant questions of the relevant people for the relevant answers. We are talking elections and the most important document in elections, the voters' register. As is the case with many things in Ghana, this has become another political debate, dividing the country in the middle. Should the Electoral Commission compile a new register for this year's elections, or they should not? The country is divided. We are talking to somebody who is sitting in the middle, who will help us understand what is going on and where all of this will lead us. You are welcome, you are watching Upfront, and we are talking elections. And my guest is the acting chair of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. I'm talking about Sheikh Armial Shuaib. I see my colleagues mention Shaibu. I'm sure Sheikh will teach us that the proper pronunciation is Shuaib. Sheikh, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
I've heard you, and in election matters, CODEO plays central role. In this debate, what is CODEO doing?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. What CODEO has done is to listen to the debates from the different angles. There's a diversity of opinions being expressed. Those who are opposed to the idea or the initiative by the Electoral Commission to compile a new voters register with all their reasons, and those who are for the idea. Secondly, we have noticed that the body that has been put in place to assist the EC make a decision, and that is IPAC. These are
an inter-party advisory committee
exactly.
of the various political
in fact,
parties.
There's a good reason why they were put. They were put together in order to promote compromises that will lead to a very good decision by the EC, especially on the issue that borders on competitiveness and so on and so forth. And instead of doing this, they themselves are divided. A section of political parties are for the compilation of the voters register. A section are against it. So,
as is the case with everything in Ghana.
And so therefore it means that they have lost, the opportunity to provide that space for compromises that leads us into a very good election. Hence, the Electoral Commission has no choice but now to take charge, because in the event of any crisis, it is the only body that will be held responsible. Secondly, I think that in the whole debate, there are certain questions that we need to clarify in order that we can assist this country to maintain its peace and harmony.
Clarify them for me.
One of them is the constitutional mandate of the EC. I will raise the question from CODEO. What came in the mind of the framers of our constitution that they qualified the mandate of the EC? Say, independence of the Electoral Commission. It is important that we reflect on this. And then how do we conceptualize that independence? That independence, where does it begin? Where does it end? Secondly, the IPAC's position. IPAC's position has the capacity of an advisory body. As an advisory body, can the advice overrule the independent mandate of the Electoral Commission, talking constitutionally?
We know that it can't, because we know that there was a case which was brought before court dealing with matters relating to IPAC. It had to do with photographs on the ID. There were those who said that if you didn't have a photograph on the ID, you should not be allowed to vote.
Good.
A citizen went to court. The court ruled, and the judges pointed out that yes, IPAC is an important body, but IPAC is unknown to the Constitution, that IPAC cannot sit down, constitute itself into a body, and take a decision that would disenfranchise a Ghanaian, because the right to vote is a fundamental right.
Exactly. That is why we must really be clear in our minds. The advisory capacity of IPAC, where does it begin? Where does it end? Where does it clash with the independent mandate of the EC? Where do we locate the balance? This is where I think that we have not addressed our minds, and so it has become a banter between a section of IPAC and the EC, and another section that is in support of IPAC. And I think that is what has created, and in doing so, we are further polarizing the country, and we are further dividing the country on an issue where we can use opportunity to arrive at a consensus and be able to arrive, at some
Check, there are those who say that IPAC position has itself been endorsed by the Electoral Commission because Electoral Commission, even though it's independent, as said in the Constitution, itself recognizes that in order for it to succeed and to do well, it must have a certain consensus building within the framework of its activities, which is the reason why IPAC was formed. And IPAC EC has been holding all these meetings with IPAC and taking all the decisions on the basis of consensus.
In fact, IPAC has been useful over our electoral seasons, except for this time, where IPAC has been divided along partisan lines. That has weakened the position of...
But that itself is not new, because IPAC has always had disagreements even at meetings.
That is it. But on this particular case, where we are struggling to arrive at a certain decision where the EC sits at the middle, who has the mandate. Now, so whose position now should IPAC take? Should IPAC go along those who are opposed to it? Should IPAC goes along those who said we support it? That's why I'm insisting that if IPAC wants to function very well, it must seek a way by which they arrive at a consensus based on certain compromises, so that in unison, their advice, which is a unified one, can go to the EC. That is when the EC will be compelled, let me use this word advisedly, because we are also understanding that though the EC has got its constitutional mandate, it is also working for the people. So there must come a time where EC is also listening to what its let's say partner is also saying, so that, because it takes two to tangle. But once the IPAC is not trying to bring all the political parties together and arrive based on certain compromises, on a certain very good and applicable decision that will help the EC to implement, then we are losing the...
Is IPAC itself and the fact of its own constitution, I mean, I'm talking about the constituents part of IPAC, does it not itself lend itself to this kind of acrimony and disagreement? Because you have different political parties with different political persuasions and different political interests coming together. Should we not have foreseen that this day will come when the divisions within IPAC will be so intransigent that we will have the stalemate that we have?
Indeed, it is because of the recognition of the diversity in political persuasions, and yet we are supposed to be working with a body that has been put in place to take a very fundamental decision that has to do with our electoral democracy. That is why, in recognition of that diversity, IPAC was put in place to promote compromises. Compromises. Because when it comes to diversity, everybody, once you take the entrenched position, you belong to the left, you belong to the right, your ideology is so clear, you so repugnant, like using the two big political parties we have in this country. Their ideas always has been so repugnant to each other. Poles apart. That is the reason why the country is so polarized. And because of that, we'll have lost the opportunity of using decent and decorous language that allows for mutual respect, that will lead us into some of these compromises. And for me, it's not been very decent, the discourse and the nature of the discourse, and if you like, the toxicity of the language that is being used.
Which is suspected.
And the language is being used to challenge the authority of an institution that has been given a constitutional guarantee of its autonomy and independence, that it is free from the control and manipulation of any external body. And we must really reflect on why the framers of Constitution have to add this issue of the independence?
It's not, is it not obvious? In order that they will not be under any political control, because if they were to be under a political control at every point in time, you will have a government which is in power, which government is constituted by a political party with its own interests. If the framers of the Constitution did not clothe the Electoral Commission with this independence, then it will be subject to
manipulation and control by any other external. That is why I think it's one of the things that would have helped us resolve this issue. We've lost opportunity. Is to look at the appointment of the EC chair, the mechanism and the process, because we have left it to the discretion of the president in consultation with the Council of State. Yeah. You see it? And that is why it's a reason for deepening of the suspicion of the two major political parties in this country. With the exit of Afarijan, of course, there are cases of suspicion before even Afarijan came in, But with the exit of Afarijan, there was an opportunity now to test, how post-Afarijan Electoral Commission would look like.
And this matter went to court?
From the day one, indeed from the day one of the appointment of the chair of the Electoral Commission prior to the current one, suspicion began. And it went on. She never had respite until her final exit through the legal process. This one also was appointed, and from day one, it began with the suspicion. And we live in a electoral cycle of suspicion that undermines the credibility of our democracy. And I think that I would have loved that the political parties who have interest to take power must also be interested in the peace of our country. But those of us who are neutral and from where we are coming from, they will not be happy with us. But we say that they are playing with the country. They are playing. But I think that conscience should guide why we engage in politics. We just don't want power for power's sake. Politics is a means by which we assume political authority so we can render service to our country. It is not for the aggrandizement that is it, for the power show that goes with it. It is not the case.
Some would say, Sheikh, you are an imam, so you are just being idealistic, but that in the real world, in real politics, it is interest. Interest first. So interest of the political actors
first. So the
first.
overarching interest of the country against the partisan interest, which comes first.
Some would say that there is no fundamental difference between the interests of the political actors and the interests of the state.
For example, I give an example where you hear somebody saying that, look, if we don't get this, and then for example, we'll go to war. For example, and I say that, look, okay, as a political party, you want power, but we want our peace. You want power. So you tell us what happens. This country, because of an electoral, what they call a voters register, the decision of the electoral body to compile a new voters register, it is talking about certain technicalities involved, the overhauling of its whole IT infrastructure, which you disagree with. Take this one against the need for us to improve upon the integrity and the credibility of our voters' roll. I, as an election observer, am so keen and interested in anything that will improve the integrity of the voters' roll.
And I'll come back to you to talk about the things that you observed in the last election and whether or not those things inform your decision, whether you have been meeting the various political actors, those who wanted a new register and those who do not want a new register, so that we will see what you are picking up from this. My guest is Sheikh Armiya Shuaib. He is the acting chair of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO. We are taking a short break. When we come back, I'll be asking him, what are they hearing from the meetings that they hold with those who have taken entrenched positions when it comes to whether or not we should have a new register? You're watching Upfront. Keep watching. Yeah, welcome back. You are watching Upfront. My guest is Sheikh Armiya Shuaib. He is he's the acting chair of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO. Sheikh, you are talking about the role that these political parties play and what their interests are. Your point is they want to place their interests. Sometimes that interest does not align with the national interest. So some are threatening violence, which is not new. We've heard this before. We know that as things stand, the current party which is governing had always wanted a new register, dating back to 2014, after the 2012 elections. They always wanted a new register. The opposition now, which was in government, opposed any idea of a register, of a new register, arguing essentially that, look, we have had this register which has served us well. Their position is threatened by 18 civil society organizations who all argue there's no sufficient basis for a new register. Shouldn't the Electoral Commission be listening?
Well, I think that, again, it's a matter of consensus. 18 CSOs, and I want to believe that the 18 CSOs are not the only CSOs that we have in this country. So probably there could be other divergent views, except that probably they have not come out to also speak. Now, I think that the CSOs could also have done better if from the beginning they had conducted their research very well.
They say they have.
The verification of some of the claims that the EC is making in terms of matters that borders on facts, dealing with cost and certain technological complexities of the whole IT infrastructure, which some of us are not very savvy.
The biometric voter management system.
I mean, those things. So that these facts should have been presented to the Parliament ahead of the Electoral Commission's presentation to the Parliament.
They would say they didn't know that the Electoral Commission was going to.
The Electoral Commission had made this thing known, whether there was consensus or there was no consensus. It's been talking about this thing, and I thought that would have helped us a lot, because it would have helped the debate. Because the Parliament was supposed to give approval to the budget. And once the Parliament has given approval, it's like saying that we've given you the go ahead.
The opposition opposed the component of the 400 million which was being made, the funding which was being made available to the Electoral Commission.
The key argument here was about value for money. But and from the CODEO point of view, in our statement, we are saying that those matters that border so much on credibility, the concerns and the fears that border on the facts of cost should be made very clear. In other words, I'm saying that those who are opposed to the new voters register, for example, what exactly is the fear?
First of all, they say there's no need for it.
Because you see, what they are saying is that there's no need for it, so that is a viewpoint, that's an opinion.
They say the reasons cited by the Electoral Commission as basis are not founded.
Are not sufficient.
They are not sound.
They are not sound, and that is their viewpoint. And that is why when you speak this way, then you allow the Electoral Commission also to come and try to counter. But you are the one directly interested as contesting political party. Now, make it clear, and we want that will help us. In fact, if we get the political parties, those opposed to it, to come out. For example, you know, there are certain attributes that guarantees the credibility and integrity of our electoral process. One, it must be free. Two, it must be transparent. Three, it must be fair. For example, these are very germane, very important attributes. So, for example, if as a party opposed to this, you can see the clear elements of unfairness, which is a legal matter for me. Clear elements of unfairness. If this new voters register are compiled, issuing from it that is 1, 2, 3 elements of unfairness that places my party or the other party at a disadvantage and create undue advantage to the other party. I think these things have not come out clear. And from our statement, we are saying that those things must be brought out clearly. And we were using even the funny expression, the elephant in the room.
Okay.
You know, yeah, that thing which is not being, but that the general view, course, I mean, value for money, it's a waste.
Which is also an important point. But that if you don't have money, why do you waste the little you have?
That is what the EC is saying, that this is the mandate that has been given. I am convinced that where we have reached, there is the need for me to compile a new voters register. The issue of whether it's a waste is a matter of national policy, and it's a matter for everybody. Now, assuming the EC does not listen to this, which in this case is an opinion of a section. Now, put this one aside and say, okay, you, the one who is involved, for example, what are your main fears that if this is compiled, it's going to affect you?
Has CODEO met with them?
Well, you know, CODEO, our duty is to observe election. In fact, we are careful not to even interfere with the mandate of the Electoral Commission. In fact, because we are an election observer group, we respect in the first place the mandate of the Electoral Commission. In our work, we seek also to support how the Electoral Commission does its work. We seek not to do what will be seen as undermining its authority, but we also have our own principles that if the thing is not correct, for example, with respect to the procedures of the Electoral Commission, we also make, like it happened during the West Wagon, Iowa, and I mean, we made our position clear to it. That's the first time that we came into conflict. The
was unhappy
with us. But that, following that, we have sought to come to understanding that no. Our work is not to be in conflict with you, because we want to respect the mandate. But also on matters of principles, we could also state, because sometimes when we criticize you, it helps you to sit back and reflect and say, look, because of what has happened, I can improve my system. So that's why in our position, we have just been listening to, and also we associate ourselves with what the Committee of Eminent Persons have said. In other words, from where we have reached where we are now, let's move the process forward through consultation. But that consultation must begin with the recognition of the Electoral Commission's mandate as an independent body.
So the key actors say this same Electoral Commission, relying on this same register and this same biometric, the BVRs, the biometric registration, voter registration equipment, and all of those, was going to conduct an election which would have led to the election of MMDCs, and I'm talking about the referendum, together with the district assembly elections. It was going to rely just a month ago on these same items, the same register. So what has suddenly become so problematic with this same equipment and data that you are going to rely on, that you need to change it? They have a valid point, don't they?
Yes, I mean, it's a good point. As I sit here, I don't speak for Electoral Commission, except on matters in the way that I understand the constitutional dimension of their mandate. So to respect that, I say, look, this is a body that has been put in place and guaranteed its autonomy, institutional and administrative autonomy, that nobody should interfere with its work.
Except that doesn't mean that they have power to do as they will.
That is why the court is there. In fact, the court is the court that is able to restrain, and it has happened in this country, where, for example, Charlotte Osai attempted to take certain decisions, and she was compelled by the court to rescind a decision.
Yes, so you're talking about the disqualification of some persons, Papa Kwesi Ndum, from contesting the last election. They went to court.
Exactly, which means that autonomy cannot be absolute. That's why I'm saying that, do we understand? I mean, where does that autonomy begins and where does it end? And I think that whilst I recognize that, we do not speak for the Electoral Commission on these matters. So
have you met them?
Electoral Commission, yeah, we have had some meeting, I mean, behind closed doors, because that's what we do. If we think there's an issue that we respecting the mandate, we just don't go into the public and shout in order to discredit the EC. No, because we know that in one way or another, we are also partners in ensuring the credibility of our electoral process. So respectfully, what we will do is that we go behind closed doors. If there's a view, we express the view. In fact, not the Electoral Commission alone, but there are other higher authorities that we go behind the scenes to, for example, issues that border on even the choice of the appointment of the the chair of the Electoral Commission, for example. We hold a view, and we hope that that view would have been helpful. For example, if there was a platform or institution with a broader base of consultation to arrive at who becomes the chair, I'm sure this kind of deep mistrust would have been cured. But unfortunately, we'll have to live with it. Because with the coming in new government, you just begin to anticipate, is the chairperson going to be removed?
Sheikh Armiao is the acting chair of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO, and he's my guest. I'm taking a break. When we come back, I'll be asking him, when they met with the Electoral Commission, what were they told? And is he convinced by the argument of the elections governing body, the EC? You're watching Upfront. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Upfront. My guest is Sheikh Shuaib Armiao. He's the acting chair of the CODEO, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. Sometimes they get into confrontation with the Electoral Commission, especially the last by-election in Accra. The EC was unhappy with the statement they issued about some matters relating to that by-election. But Sheikh says that they went to meet with them to patch up whatever differences they had. I'm asking him, what happened when you met them over this debate on the electoral register?
Well, I mean, the meeting was just a courtesy call we made on the Electoral Commission, and it was respectfully, welcomed. And we just had some behind closed discussions. When you have a discussion behind closed doors, it's not good. It's not prudent that you put them in the public domain. But it was a meeting to patch up and say that, look, we all have a common interest to ensure the credibility of our election. As an election body, we have played a supportive role, not now, but for a long time, because we maintain our principles of neutrality, non-partisanship. We are interested in ensuring that the election is peaceful, is free and transparent and fair. We are interested in also, detecting fraud and preventing fraud in our elections. These are matters that I think are germane even to the work of the EC. And so on that particular plane, we are on the same page, and we want to be working together, devoid of what might be seen as that actually was the main thing that transpired.
Given that CODEO has monitored our elections for a very long time, we know that in 1992 we compiled a new register for that year's election. The very next election, which was 96, we compiled a new register. 2000 we compiled a new register. 2004 we did a new register. 2012 we did a new register for that election. Then 2020 we are doing a new one. It would seem that we don't seem to be a very prudent people, because we are doing the same thing over and over again. Every election from 92, 96, 2000, 2004, 4 successive elections, we are compiling a new register. We are going to the people, taking their data, and we know that sometimes people have to queue for days, hours, in order to get a voter's register, a voter ID. And yet, we don't seem to keep that data so that we can refer to it. That every time we are tasking the people have to leave their jobs. People have to travel. People have to spend time, energy to go and get a voter ID. Are we not punishing people just because they want to exercise their franchise?
I think it's a very disturbing trend, as we have said. And once we have failed to sanitize the process very well, from 1992, as you have said, when we began with the opaque
ballot boxes.
And whether or not we like it or not, it's part of our history. We had a history and a practice of ballot box snatching.
And stuffing.
It's part of our electoral past. And that triggered the whole initiative now to introduce transparent boxes. Over time, people who were being registered, we manipulated the voters' register. And so, from that suspicion, we had to now introduce also, what do we call it, voter ID cards with pictures. Originally, it didn't include that. So from our own suspicions, we've been improving upon the integrity of our electoral process.
So why didn't we just do that right thing from day one?
Exactly.
Why did we have
that
to
is
do
Africa for
a
you.
voter ID without a picture, and then later let's introduce the picture, and then subsequently, let's put a color picture, and then let's do biometric. And even
that one, time has come where we're saying that even that one is not sufficiently credible, or it doesn't give us the kind of integrity. So over the period we have been, until now, we are thinking of new technologies.
Some say the current register gave us the cleanest, most credible elections in Ghana's history. Yes. 2016.
Yes.
You are an election observer. Is that a view you hold, that the 2016 election was the most credible, most transparent, fair election?
You know, for us, when we go on the field, what we do is that we sit down back and then we look at the process. Matters of the voters register is for the political parties and the Electoral Commission. We sit back and we see, we deploy observers and we give them a checklist. For example, we want you to tell us, we give it a checklist, the start of polls, for example, is supposed to be at 7 a.m. So we ask you to now transmit a message to us. At your polling station, did we start at 7 a.m.? If no, at what time did we start? At the start of poll, all electoral materials, were they available? 3, at the start of polls, all election staff, were they available? Were agents of political parties available? As part of the required procedures, was the ballot box displayed to show to everybody that it is empty? Were there some incidents? Was there available enough security arrangements? People with disability, was the electoral arrangement convenient for them to cast their votes? All these things are things that we are interested. Yes. And so then these messages will be transmitted to us at a data center. And that's why at the midday report, we are able to tell what percentage of all the polling stations was election began at 7 a.m. or delayed. And then we try to find reasons where there were incidents. What percentage of all the polling stations did we find there were certain incidents that marred election, for example, and so on and so forth. And then we do so we concentrate more on the electoral process. But as to the quality of the voters register, because we are not in charge, but then if you ask this question, and I think that some of the things that I've heard is that, you see, parliamentary and presidential election comes with so much excitement and passion that it requires a certain kind of system that the Electoral Commission says, as I listen, that they don't want to risk. The assembly elections, not so much excitement. It's a referendum for the 6 new regions, was not nationwide, so it was possible for them to manage, even if there are things that they were not comfortable about. But you can imagine the current election that we're going to do, and the heat that we are even observing now. And as an observer, that's outside observer, you have the immediate past president who is coming back. And he's come back like a wounded lion. he's coming to redeem in his language, to rescue. And you have a certain president who is not prepared to cede power after 4 years.
I'm running out of time, but I can't let you go without asking this question. You just talked about heat and you talk about redemption and continuation.
Yes.
What is it about us that makes a simple process of go and cast your ballot and declare the results such a controversial
thing? I think it goes back to the politicians and how they do it. For example, I want to find out why a politician knows that some young people are below voting age, and he allows them, encourages them to go and vote. And this for both parties.
When I ever meet any of the general secretaries of the political party, Sheikh, I will ask them this question. My guest has been Sheikh Shuai Armiyao. He is the acting chair of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, CODEO. We have been talking about the voters register and the debate that has dominated the airways and culminated in street protests in Tamale and quite recently in Kumasi. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo. This has been Upfront. God willing, will bring you another exciting discussion. Until then, keep safe.